Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Kathleen Bartels, the Executive Director of the Museum of Contemporary Art Toronto. I'm so happy you've joined us tonight for this very special creative conversation. As we begin this evening, I want to acknowledge that we are living and working on the treaty land of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, an area in which the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and Wendat people have thrived throughout history. We are honored to present exhibitions and programs at MOCA and with our partners on these as uninvited guests on these unceded territories and treaty lands. Tonight we gather for the museum's first major in-person conversational event since 2019. So, yay! And we are very happy to be working with Paradise Theater in order to kind of have so many people with us tonight. As you can tell, it's a packed house. Not surprisingly, considering our guests. This event also marks Shirin Neshat's exhibition, Land of Dreams, at MOCA. The selection of works at the museum really roots the viewer's experience in some of Shirin's earliest concerns, her themes and compositional devices, as well as her long-standing interest in the ephemeral nature of dreams and the tangible impact of political events. We are so thrilled that Shirin has joined us from New York, and I extend my sincerest gratitude to Shirin for all of her and her studio's incredible work and generosity for the museum to realize such an important, impactful, strong exhibition, as well as the opportunity to have you speak tonight. Thank you, Shirin. Shirin is joined by a really phenomenal filmmaker and cinematographer, Zaynê Akyol, who we've had the pleasure to work with and to get to know really over the last kind of 4 or 5 days. But she's been working closely with Shirin as well as Farnoosh. The public programs for Shirin Neshat's exhibition, including tonight's conversation, is organized by our guest public programs curator, Farnoosh Talaee. Farnoosh? Thank you. You've done a really extraordinary job. So the conversation tonight will launch with 2 short clips from Land of Dreams and also from Zaynê's Land of Roses. Following the conversation, there will be a Q&A, and then we're going to be showing a documentary about Shirin's work and life that was organized and produced by Shirin, MOCA, Farnoosh, and Roden Hamadi. Roden's here, I know, so thank you, Roden, as well. So now I'd like to turn it over to the amazing Farnoosh, and she's going to introduce our special guests.
Oh, wow. Hello, everyone. Salam hamegi. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Farnoosh Talaee, the guest curator of public programs for Shirin Neshat exhibition at the MOCA. And I'm so pleased to work during the past year with you, Shirin June, to create a series of public programs and a mini documentary on display at the museum accompanying the exhibition Land of Dreams on view as of today until the end of July. This unique series of public programs, starting with tonight's creative talk, will continue with a free monthly conversation at the museum, aiming to foster awareness around the Shirin Neshat journey, both as a filmmaker and photographer. Tonight, we will focus on Land of Dreams. Land of Dreams is a large-scale photographic and video installation that marks a rotation in Shirin's gaze towards the Western world, living in one and dreaming in another. So I'm going very quickly through the bios Shirin Neshat is an Iranian-born artist and filmmaker living in New York. Neshat works and continues to experiment with the mediums of photography, video, and film, which she imbues with highly poetic and politically charged images and narratives that question issues of power, religion, race, gender, and the relationship between the past and present, Occident and Orient, individual and collective, during the lens of her personal experiences as an Iranian woman living in exile. Zaynê Akyol is a Kurdish-born Canadian filmmaker based in Montreal. Her first feature documentary, Gulistan, Land of Roses, draws the human portraits of Kurdish women guerrillas fighting against Daesh. The film received 80 international festival nominations, as well as 12 awards, including the Dark Aliens at the Locarno Film Festival. Her new film, Roja, will be present this year at the Hot Dogs in Toronto. Dear all, I'm sorry, but I'm so surprised to seeing human beings. Please enjoy this conversation between two women, filmmaker, artists, and human beings that I adore, Shirin Neshat and Zaynê Akyol.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Thank you, MOCA. Thank you, November, Farnoosh, Kathleen, for the invitation. Thank you, Shirin, for doing this with me.
Thank you for doing this for me.
Yeah, that's great to have a conversation.
I'm also very nervous because this is the first time I've spoken in public in 2.5 years, 3 years. I forgot what this feels like, so.
True, me too. I'm very excited about this. We saw a clip, I think, from right after my first film, Gulistan, Land of Roses, which was a small clip of 2 minutes, I think, about Land of Dreams. Can you tell us about your approach for this film, because it's much longer than that, and you have also an exhibition that is linked, and it's a combination, it's coming together, and you're coming from two form of art to format, which is photography and also filmmaking. And we would talk about that later, because I really want to know how that transition happens, because for me, for example, it was the opposite. So we have a lot of in common, and I would love to hear about the Land of Dreams.
Well, I just want to start with the fact that when I first got to know you and I saw your film, I think there's a lot of parallels. First of all, in terms of what we do, there's certainly differences because your work is documentary, and I absolutely love this film. And my work is pure fiction. It's not to do with reality. In fact, my work is always very unbelievable, which is what I like to be, like a poet, I guess. And at the same time, I think both of us as women are very interested in politics and history and feminism. And I've done, with the Women of Allah, a lot of work about militism, military women who are involved with military. And so I was very, very enthralled by her film. I think it's so hard to know where to start this conversation, but it's a good point of departure for people who know me a little bit, that I'm doing photography and video and movies. And I really, if I can summarize why there's this evolution in my work, for me, photography is about human portraiture. I am obsessed with human expression. If you see my photography, there's no background opposite to the videos. It's only plain background. My obsession is with the gaze of the people. I used to photograph myself and and then I had my friends, and then I had muses, and now I just like to photograph regular people, because I think there's nothing more powerful than the humanity in human body and expression. And that is not something you can replicate in a video or in a movie. And therefore, my relationship to photography is how to draw out the humanity, the emotions, the vulnerability in the person, and how they embody all that sense of duality and in them. Like I photograph myself, it was always like, how can I bring out all my own sense of dualities as a human being? My strength and yet fragility as a woman, as a human being. And so when I started to photograph people, and then I started to get really interested in photographing regular people, not models, not actors, and I think that's become a very powerful evolution in my work. With The Land of Dreams, I photographed over 200-300 people in the state of New Mexico, and the photographs that you'll see at MOCA, it's for me, it's kind of a portrait of America, but from the point of view of an Iranian immigrant. I went to meet Native Americans, African Americans, the Anglos, people who were poor, people who lived in reservation, people who were minorities, and the intention of this collection of the photographs, which was my really first entry into making work about North America, the Western culture, was to really emphasize the diversity that creates the American identity. But by doing so, I got to get very close to the Native Americans, to the African Americans, to the people as another minority. And so I hope the images speak to you. I think most of you haven't seen the photographs, but in process, I became like a documentary artist. I asked every person I photographed who they are, where they live, but also what was their latest dream. So there was a point of departure in terms of, how dreams are very universal, and how our subconscious, regardless of where we come from, we have a lot of similar fears and anxieties about displacement, abandonment, violence, war, death. And so I basically photographed first for 2 weeks and created these photographs. And moving on, I'm sorry, I'm covering a lot.
I'm just going to stop you there, because it's really interesting. What you're saying is that you actually invite people to come to see you when you want to photograph them. And I was very curious about how is the process of photographing people that you don't know, and you're able to grab something that is out of a normal, if you look normally someone, you cannot grab that sense of this person, and there is something that emerged which is much bigger than this person. Do you have any way of doing, I know every filmmakers, every photographers have a specific way of doing things. Do you have this routine or this thing that you make sure to do, or do you ask something that make them comfortable? Can you tell me about it?
Well, we have to talk very differently about photography than video, because photography is about freezing a single moment. It's not about storytelling, and I think that's the major difference. When I make a video or a movie, to me, I'm telling a story, but when you are, trying to make a photograph, freezing a moment, which I find very interesting, by the way, this relationship between dreams and photography, because dreams, it's about these moments that are fleeting and vanishing, and it's so ephemeral. You always forget dreams very quickly, but with photography, it's permanent. It's not ephemeral. you take someone's picture and it stays forever. And so for me, there was this poetry between the relationship between dreams and portraiture, photography, and how you freeze that moment, but with dreams you can't. And so I come from this very conceptual, poetic departure. So when I went to do Land of Dreams, I had that in mind, that opposite to the video that I made, and eventually we made a feature film, which is about to come out, is a 2-hour movie. It really was about emotions, it's purely emotions. I wasn't trying to tell the story of this person I was photographing. No, it's not possible in 20 minutes. There were people I didn't know. There were homeless people coming from the street. There were natives, I didn't get to know them very well. We got to know each other for those 20 minutes as two strangers. Of course, I introduced myself as an Iranian artist living in America, and how this project, it's all about my point of view as an Iranian immigrant to capture the spirit of America and its diversity, etc. And then we will have this rapport. With the video, it's very different. It was involved with very different demands. And this is why I'm interested in these 3 different mediums, because I think they demand very different things from me, not only as an artist, but as a human being. For me, 20 minutes with this person who just came from the street and knows nothing about me, knows nothing about art, it's really a very different and very meaningful experience than when I'm working with an actor who read the scripts, who knows, what I'm after. You see, even the video, there's a lot of, I would say, in the Land of Dreams, there was a lot of documentary style to it, because I went door to door. Some of you may have seen the video that my muse, my own alter ego, actually goes door to door to American people's home and asks if they would let her in, that I'm an artist and I would like to take your picture, and eventually collect their dreams. And I went door to door to people's home in New Mexico, and I said, I'm an Iranian artist, and I'm just wondering if you let me inside. And I was hoping they would, and I was hoping they would let me film in their house and photograph them and collect their dreams. And so basically, the story of the video was about me. It was me doing what I did in photography. So it's really complicated to explain to you how complex, and I just want to go back, if the Woman of Allah were about me taking my own pictures and putting a little bit of me in the work, this was also about me, but not about me looking into Iran, but me looking into America, and me putting myself into the work.
Yeah, actually, because you have from your early works, you're very inspired by your Iranian background and culture. I think you have a PDF. That's true. From your early work, that maybe we can just take a look. So it's very inspired from your Iranian culture, and we see with maybe, I don't know if you want to comment those pictures, because my question is how that.
Just go faster.
Please faster. So, yeah, you have calligraphy obviously on the pictures. How do you choose what to write, or what is the link with the people? I know this one. Is it your picture?
I think we would need a few hours for me to go. No, but,
because I don't read Farsi, so I'm sure there's people in the audience that don't read.
I realize that we are covering a lot here, and I think the images you see is from what actually is included in the exhibition, which is the Woman of. And by the way, I have to say, this exhibition at MOCA, it's really significant. I think it's really interesting because it shows the earliest work of mine, which is Woman of Allah, to Rapture, one of the first videos, then to the latest work, Roja and Land of Dreams, which comes to my obsession with dreams. But it is interesting because with the Woman of Allah, I was my first work of art, and I was living in New York, making work that somehow sort of reconnected me to Iran by looking at the Iranian Revolution, the religious fervor that was happening. And the images, the writing were mainly by Iranian women poets. This series became very controversial, and I'm sure many Iranian people know that, because I was accused by many Iranian people that these images became iconic and sort of supportive of the Iranian Revolution. And the people who were pro-Islamic revolution or Iranian government, they were thinking that I was criticizing them. And then the Western critics thought that I was just sort of sensationalizing violence. So it was a losing game, actually, in some ways, because the political nature of this series did not allow people to look at the arts without being neutral. Everybody's judgment was based on their relationship to the topic. And this explains to you why I moved toward making work like Rapture, like Land of Dreams, Women Without Men, work that were purely magic realism, surrealism, about dreams, because there is no judgment when it comes to dreams. Dreams are innocent, you know, and the nature of surrealism and the way that it references the reality, but really it's sort of all to do with absolutely subliminal and subconscious. It's very interesting, that sense of duality. So the Woman of Allah was exactly why I ran away from realism. And now we have to talk a little bit about you, and you have done such...
But I really want to know what is written. I'm still there.
What is written? Did you want me to translate it?
No, but not all. But just to give a sense, an idea, what is there?
Yes, they were by Iranian women poets, and particularly for this series, women who had a strong conviction for the Islamic Revolution.
Okay, that's where the accusation is coming from. So I noticed also, like from 2016, from Roja, actually, you're switching your camera. It's a way of talking, of course, because it's really, you're inspired by your Iranian culture, but from Roja in 2016 or Land of Dreams in 2020, you kind of turn your camera towards the West. Can you explain me how that happened, or why that you decided to take that path?
That's a really good question. I mean, opposite to many of you friends from Iran, I haven't been to Iran for so many years. And I felt that for the first many years of my work, this obsession with nostalgia and memory, and always feeling that I'm not really living where I am, that mind you that my entire family lived in Iran. And this desire to reconnect to a culture that didn't really want you back, And I think at some point I reached a stage of exhaustion where I no longer wanted to live in this perpetual sense of nostalgia, that I wanted to have a sense of home. And in New York, I started to have a great community of Iranian friends that I continue to work with, including my husband. So it became a reality to me that I had to move on. I had been making work in Morocco, in Mexico, in Turkey, in Egypt. I was a nomad, but always making believe that it was Iran. And I think that with Land of Dreams, I reached a point that I am as American as I am Iranian. My foundation emotionally is very Iranian. My aesthetics, my vocabulary is deeply rooted in the poetic and mystical tradition in Iran. I'm very interested in history. I'm interested in Iranian history, ancient history, modern history, contemporary history. But I'm also really American. I grew up in Iran, in the US since I was 17 years old. But my obsession with Iran has been because I've been alone in the US since I was 17. And this pain and isolation and being away from family and home was why I made arts and why I became an artist. But at some point it became too painful to live in this state that I will always be living in America and with this feeling like I'm permanently displaced. So with the Land of Dream is, I must admit that encountering other minorities, including the Native Americans and African Americans and others, I for the first time felt that I don't have to always feel like I have to be only among Iranians, that I'm also American. I am a minority in America. And it was a huge, huge feeling of relief. And that you can take an Iranian out of Iran, but you can never take Iran out of Iranian. And my work will always be Iranian because I am Iranian. I don't have to make work about Iran forever, if that makes sense. And so I think this was, with the Land of Dreams, this was my major self-realization as a human being, as an artist, that, you know, I no longer have to be tied down to the specificities of Iran. But this might disappoint many of my Iranian friends, but I think that's a reality for a lot of us that have left Iran for a long time. I keep going away from your question.
No, that's fine. We would have time. One of the things that also, which is, I think we have in common, is photography and filmmaking. How that journey happened to you, for you, going from photography to, why did you choose to go from a still image to a moving image?
It's a very good question. I have never studied photography. I never studied video. I never studied cinema. And I can't say I'm very brave or talented. I am not talented. I just work really hard at it. The truth is that I am a storyteller. I found that I am interested in still images, but I'm truly interested in telling stories. But there's something else about moving to cinema. Being a photographer and serving the art world, which you don't, is that we're very good at making commodities. We make pictures and paintings and sculptures and we sell them for a lot of money. And then we claim that they're very political and very meaningful. And limited people see it. There's something about the movie that is not a commodity and is not something you can put in your pocket or hang it. I think my first realization was, when I wanted to make a movie, was when I went to some big collector's home and I went to use the bathroom and my picture was hanging in the bathroom. I was like, oh my God, I work all this time and I thought I was so like meaningful and this is where I end up. You know, it's like, that's the truth. It fit their bathroom perfectly. And I found that there was another thing. I felt with my Iranian friends who never saw my work at a gallery or museum, with Women Without Men, everybody saw that movie. It was one of the most satisfying experiences I've ever had because Iranian audience mean a world to me, even though I don't go to Iran. And it just gave me such a satisfying artistic and human, satisfaction that I could just say that, I could have a film in a cinema and I could have a relationship with an audience who knows nothing about my photography or video art. And that they are looking at this film and that's where their relationship begins with me. And that I have to keep them in this room for 2 hours. And so for me, it was an artistic challenge, how to maneuver my language from still photography to 10-minute video, which was very, if you see Rapture, it's very abstract, it's very evocative, there's no beginning, middle, and the end. To, thank you, somebody thought about that. The abstraction of the videos to the narrative form that has a beginning, middle, and the end. So I took 6 years to make the first film, 6 years to make the film, and then 2-3 years to make the latest film. But I stress the audience, the change in audience, the setting, and mainly the artistic challenge of being able to advance your vocabulary.
That's true. When I photograph, for example, I feel very alone. I meditate. I connect with the people that I photograph, and it's a meditation for me. It's something out of something that I never experienced with any other kind of form of art. When I'm doing a film, I have to manage 10 people and tell them what to do, and your brain is all over the place, and you have to make sure everything is going in the right direction that you want, because at the end of the day you have a lot of people to pay, and it's involved a lot of things that is not specifically art. How do you deal with that yourself? Or do you have any challenge as a woman? Because as you know, and a lot of people notice, filmmaking is a man world. How do you manage that, and what are the challenges for you personally as an artist, woman artist?
I think the only way I can explain it is my own character. I'm very disciplined. I'm a very hard worker. I'm very patient, and I can work with a team of people. It's difficult to be a leader as a woman, and I work with a lot of men. But I've always worked in collaboration with other people. For example, the photographs. At the beginning, I posed, and the photographer was someone else. I really don't know. I think that every medium for me has demanded very different concentration from me. All I know is that art for me is not a hobby. Art is for me everyday life. I work and live with the people that I collaborate with. My husband is my closest collaborator. My studio, the people I work with, they're also people that I, socialize with. So I have no separation between life and art. And can I be honest? I'm like a soldier. I work in a very disciplined way, and I take the work very seriously. And so, yeah,
That's from Roja, I think?
That's from Roja.
So maybe it's a good time to ask you how the ideas come to you. How do you have it? Because from the idea to selecting an idea to realizing it, to making it happen, the whole process can be very long and different from artist to an artist. How does it work for you?
Well, I have to say that I think regardless of whether it's a photograph or a video or a movie, the subjects are always driven by a sort of a personal urge, something that has obsessed me and has somehow involved my personal life. And so all the women in the films, all the characters are based on my own character in many ways. But usually, and always, is not autobiographical. My work is never autobiographical, but it's very personal. So, for example, the most recent work that I'm doing is inspired by something that it's about a court in Iran. It's about the prisoners in Iran. It's loosely something that I've been watching, but it's not necessarily about an Iranian. And so it's something that is outside of me and something related to my personal experience, if I could say. So the work is never autobiographical, but it's inspired by issues that I'm facing. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you choose the subjects of your films and your work. Can you talk a little bit about you?
I'm not sure if we have time. Since we have to stop at 8, right? No? We can keep going, okay. Actually, my journey is very different from yours because I grew up in Montreal, so I'm originally Kurdish, but I immigrated when I was 4, so I can't remember really Turkey or how it was. So all my inspiration, it's coming from, for sure, my Kurdish background, but I had something that very kind of marked me and traumatized me at a very young age. That's why I have this work that is really focused on women fighters. I had a babysitter who, at the age of, I met her in Montreal, I was 5, and she was maybe 18 years old. She was Kurdish also. And she used to babysit me for a year, and suddenly she disappeared off my life. And I learned that she joined the PKK, which is the Kurdish guerrilla fighters. And I was attached to her, and I consider her as my big sister, and she was my role model. I really want to be like her when I grew up. And when she disappeared, it was a big drama in my life, and I always kept that inside of me. And after my studies, I decided to make a film about her journey. So that's what, but the beginning of this whole journey happened, and this whole work about the women fighters and started. So it was really personal, but I didn't want to make a film about war. It just happened. The day that I arrived in Iraq, the war started. It was the exact day that Daesh attacked Kurdistan, where I was. So it was really by accident that I was there during the war, because the idea was not to make a film about war. It was about making a film about Kurdistan, which was my babysitter, and unfortunately she died while she was fighting. So that's the inspiration, and I keep going there. As you know, I did a second film, and my second film is in Syria, and I interviewed, after being really interested in the Kurdish women fighters, I was wondering who they are fighting, and they are fighting Daesh, and who is Daesh? So I went to the ISIS jail where they detain ISIS fighters after the caliphate ended. And so I visited a lot of jails, and I interviewed a lot of previous Daesh fighters. And the film actually would be screened for the first time in Canada at Hot Dogs in Toronto, so and I invite you all. So that's how it happened, basically, for me. And for sure, so, because you mentioned it, you said you wanted to also include your American culture in your work. And that's something, after 2 films, that I want to do as well. And I'm really thinking.
I mean, it's interesting because as you're talking about your work, I realize we're both in many ways are framing history. I mean, in her work, the women fighters in Iraq, and now the latest work you're doing in Syria. And even though my work is a work of fiction, when I look back retrospectively, from Women of Allah is about the Islamic Revolution. The Women of Allah really sort of captures the religious fervor of the 1979 revolution. When you think about the Women Without Men, it was from the 1953 coup that overthrew our democratically elected prime minister. And we took a lot of care and research, and we recreated Iran in 1953 in Morocco. I've done the Book of Kings, which looked at Ferdowsi's Book of Kings. And I took his literature, but also it took a look at the Green Movement in Iran of 2009. I did a work in Egypt, Our House is on Fire, about the Egyptian Revolution. I did The Land of Dreams, which is about Trump era. So what I'm saying is that I think in many ways I find that in a very fictionalized way, artists can become narrators of history. I mean, in your part, I think you're documenting a very specific moment of history. For me, I think it becomes kind of timeless, because when you think about Ferdowsi and the Book of Kings of the 10th century, you see how the history of Iran is repeating itself, right? For me, that was basically what I was after, by bringing something of ancient time and connecting it to what's happening in Iran. The notion of patriotism, you know, the heroism of the people who are devoting themselves, patriots for their country, the sense of nationalism, the people who are willing to die for their nation, is the spirit of the Book of Kings, right? But this was the spirit that we had of the activist in 2009. So for me, it was not a conscious level. But I think, as much as I say I'm a poet, my work is very personal, that it's all about my own anxieties and my own dilemma as an Iranian caught in between two different worlds that are in conflict, US and Iran. But in many ways, I think artists like myself, in many ways also dealing with history, you know? And I think that Land of Dreams, maybe it is capturing the history from a point of view of an immigrant, and eventually will be seen in that way, you know, 100 years from now. But the work that you're doing is you're framing reality. I'm not very good with reality. I'm afraid of things that are very timeful. I like things that are not believable and that they have references to reality, but they're timeless.
But in your photography, it's really a way of, when you photograph people and you invite them, it's documentarist kind of film photographing, because you invite people. And
when you see those faces, they may seem contemporary, but they're very timeless.
True.
I never ever photograph people so they look like they belong to today. I think.
But the approach, wouldn't you say it's you mix style of doing art?
I mean, I live now, so I mean, I am a generation, and I mean, my eyes are contemporary, but I think, honestly, if you really look carefully at my images, those faces of people could be from the ancient time to the future. I'm not very good with the present time, and I think that that is something that we could go into length if we had to just focus on, but I'm really interested in, because I really love documentary film work and documentary photography, but I'm just not very good at believability. And I think fiction, there's a lot of truth to fiction. I think that I've always been very much into poetry. You Iranians know that we come from a country that is obsessed with poetry, because people like Farrokhzad, people who we grew up with, when they talked in language of poetry, but it made so much sense to us. It was not abstract. When she said, I plant my fingers in the garden, it's such a bizarre idea, but we knew what she meant. We knew what that oppression meant. The metaphor, the allegory of the poetic language, it's so much more powerful than reality. I just couldn't, I mean, I'm talking about myself. I relate to the poetry because, or the films of Kiarostami, in the way he made his films, is, there's something about it that I don't think you can get in reality, you know? And I think Iranian people understand that really well. But I appreciate so much, like when I saw your work and I saw these ladies, you really have to see this film. And I wanted to sob with them, because the commitment, the convictions they had to be a nationalist and work in military, yet their fragility and their feminism, touched me so much, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, me too, because it was my first contact with them when I started this film. But I want to add something about documentary filmmaking, which you said you're not good at it. But I think actually you're very good at it, because I think fiction, drama, really tend to make us believe that is the reality. And documentary filmmaking tend to make believe that is fiction, that is everything is unreal. So I think both are kind of indistinguished. You cannot know when it's, in your case, so beautifully done. It's everything is mixed. I think you used both forms so well. I cannot say that you're not good at it at all. I just want to add that. For those women, that's true. It was very, but also in a sense of, they didn't had any choice. They were kind of stuck there, and they were being attacked. And what you can do then, protect yourself. So I'm not sure if it's a very conscious decision. Of course it is, because they joined this guerrilla fighters, but what is the other choice for them?
I mean, look what's happening in Ukraine. Look at the images that were inundated the past days.
Mm-hmm.
Before I came, I just felt like, why am I going even for this evening? This doesn't make sense, what's happening. The people are suffering so much. You see images of the mothers and the destroyed homes. And I mean, how can art replicate the power of reality in that way? Come on. Somebody tells me, can you go do some photography in Ukraine? What? How could you possibly do anything other than just look at these images that are all over the social media, all over the media? So the question is, where does art come into the picture, really? I mean, and I say, I feel ridiculous. Even when I came to Toronto, my husband was saying, the world is going down the drain and you're going to have an exhibition. And it's true. What are we doing? What are we doing? How can we do anything else but being paralyzed? And I always felt, and going back to your question, suffering, human tragedy and pain is something that connects us all. And I think that, honestly, I have felt a lot of pain in the last many years that I've been alone in US without my family. And I know what pain feels like, and displacement, isolation, being alienated, being a woman who has to take care of myself in a foreign country. And when I meet people who have pain, I feel connected to them, and I feel then there's the humanity in all of us, that regardless where we come from. So I think, I don't know where I'm getting with this, but there is something powerful about art, is the connectivity and the way that that the universality of the subjects and what people experience on this planet, and that how our destiny is decided by a few others. And the question of people of power and people who are not powerful. And so it's a really big dilemma about how to go about making art that is meaningful, that it's not just bringing attention to ourselves, as narcissistic as artists can be and art is. And I can say with determination that I take my work very seriously. I'm not always very good at it. Not everything I make is very good and successful. But I think that I consider myself a communicator. But through emotions and through poetry, but also lots of research and I'm very interested in politics and history. I'm not a sentimental person. I don't want to make work that is just about, and so I feel this is my duty as a person to look inside and outside. And the work that I make is as fragile as I am, but it's also intelligent, and it's really thoughtful, and it takes a lot of research. It's not something just purely intuitive. And so
No, for sure.
it must be past the time now.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Art is a lot of research. Definitely, even if you are doing documentary, it took me 6 years, each of my films. So it's a long process, and my camera is never on me, but always on other people. Actually, I hate camera, so I hate to be in front of a camera. Right now it's okay, I feel safe, but I find people who are in front of camera very courageous, actually. People who I film, there is something about this act of giving yourself, you're kind of naked in front of a camera. Everything you make with your face is shown in a big screen. You cannot hide with a camera. It's impossible to lie. So maybe we would take some question from the audience to Shirin, and we continue like that for 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. So I would take the questions
to you.
So maybe you can just raise hand and I would see. Sure.
I think you have to speak louder.
Hi. I'm still thinking about the thing that's written in the women picture photography that you have. It's not a single photography. When you say photography, you create a moment, fix it for the timeless, but when you montage, you write something in the picture. It means you want to tell something. You know what I mean? It's not just a photography. It's another art. It's a mix of art. And I'm still thinking, what's the relation between the women always have a black cover? I also saw some men that with white dress. The men also. It means you want to say something. And still, I'm thinking, what's the poet of those written things? The name of that person? Can you mention the name of the?
Sure. First of all, just to explain that for me, calligraphy came because I was very interested in both Persian and Islamic tradition, the way that they integrate text and image. We grew up in Iran, where text is a part of everything, including design and architecture, the carpet, the ceiling. I'm very interested with that. But then in terms of my images, because the images were a woman that were very silent and passive, the text suggested a voice, that they were trying to say something. I used every type of text I use is integral with the meaning of the series. I have used Furugh Farrokhzad a lot in other work. I used Tahireh Safarzadeh in The Woman of Allah. I have mainly women poets, modern, contemporary. So in the images of Land of Dreams, I actually, in the bigger, bolder white writing was their names and the place of birth and date of birth of the subjects. But the ones in the back were the loose interpretation of people's dreams. That was based on a book that I had from Iran. So I thought, by the way, it was interesting for me for the first time to have Persian writing, Farsi writing, on people's images that were Western, that were not Iranian. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very much.
Is there any other questions? Okay. I don't know who to pick. I'm gonna pick this woman from. They're gonna just give you a microphone so we can hear.
Thank you so much. خیلی خوش اومدین اول از همه. دو تا سوال داشتم ازتون. Two questions. Number one, is there any specific reason that you chose New Mexico? And number two, is there any land of dream for Shirin Neshat?
Actually, it's a very good question, and thank you for bringing that up. Shoja Azari, my husband, and Qasem Ibrahimian, the cinematographer, we traveled all across the United States to look for the state that looked like Iran. we went all, we knew that we wanted something that looked like a desert landscape, because I'm from Qazvin, you know, there's a very barren, dry landscape, and we liked Nevada, we liked Arizona, but I really love New Mexico, the Southwest, also because we shot the movie there as well. There's a history to New Mexico, the Southwest, with incredible films like Easy Rider and Paris, Texas, and traditional films, but also truly it resembled Iran. And we wanted to play with people's mind that, is this Iran or is this New Mexico? There's another reason. New Mexico is one of the poorest states in America. And also demographically is very diverse. You have huge Native American population. You have very large Mexican, Hispanic immigrants. You have African Americans. And I was really interested in the diversity of the demographics. So we filmed all over the state. And Land of Dreams, do I have a Land of Dreams? No, New York. My house, my husband is from Shiraz, and he is a gardener, and he has created a little garden at our house, and he's a very good gardener, and people come to our house all the time because of his good cooking and good garden. So that's our Land of Dreams, I guess. I'm happy.
Okay, the gentleman here. Where's the microphone? Oh.
Thank you very much to everyone on the line for handing the mic, first of all. I just want to thank you for coming, even though you had some doubts about it. My question is more of a personal one. I'm a student who just arrived to Toronto 6 months ago from Istanbul, and your past and your work in a way works as future to me. And though your work is a projection regarding that, I still feel like there is a turning back idea to me. And my question is,
There's what? I'm sorry.
like
You
going
have the
back
mask.
to
It's hard to understand.
okay,
So,
going back to your country in a way, like leaving the exile, let's say, if there is an opportunity. My question is, how do you think your work would be different if you, in a moment, decided to go back or stay?
I don't want to go back. It's a really good question. You know, it's really true. I don't even think I'm capable of making a film or a work that is not from my perspective as an Iranian. Like I said before, the feature film is also about an Iranian woman in America. And I think that it's because my work is so personal. As I said, it's not autobiographical. But as an artist, I can't think about any idea. You asked me earlier, how do you come up with idea? I can't think about any ideas that I have not personally gained it. I have not personally experienced it. I have to have lived it. When I say I make a film about an Iranian woman immigrant, it's because I am an Iranian woman immigrant. I cannot make a work about, let's say, an Australian person coming to Canada. I mean, it has to be an experience that somehow echoes my life, my own emotions, and it is a question that I like to frame. If it's not a question that is interesting to me, I am not interested in it. Or if I like to explore it, you see. But again, it doesn't have to be something that, like, you know, again, not being autobiographical, I could really then indulge in things that goes way outside of me. But still, the lens has to be through something that I have personally absolutely felt it, you know. And a lot of it, we didn't end up talking about, it's about this duality. What goes on inside of me, what goes on outside of me. Iranian, American, I am very, very tough and strong, but I'm extremely fragile and insecure and weak. And I'm a definition of a contradiction, a duality. But then look at my work. It's black and white. It's always about natural landscape, interior claustrophobic landscape. You know, it's about dreams and reality, magic realism. You know, everything I make in form and concept is about opposites. So what I'm saying is that those characteristics, without much of my control, are inherited in my vision. And so my ideas also have to be truthful to that. You know, I just can't, somebody cannot hand me a script and say, oh, can you just make a film about that? Or can you just go to Ukraine now? And, you know, I can't. I just don't operate like that. I don't know if I answered your question right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Right here. Yeah. The microphone is coming.
Hello, and thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. I find the title, Land of Dreams, kind of ironic and a little bit confusing in that the people that you've chosen to photograph are marginalized people, people who, I wonder, does America still feel like the land of dreams or the dream that they had when they made their way to America? And how did you land on that seemingly incongruent title?
It's absolutely a parody. I mean, obviously the whole title came from Land of Dreams being traditionally an identity, the American culture. The dreamers, people who came to this country to have their dreams come true, be given a second chance. A country that was created with the blood of immigrants. And just before Trump came into power and right throughout his administration, we saw a very big shift of reality and American identity and how it was moving toward marginalization of the minorities, the Muslim ban. And so this was clearly about questioning, is America still a land of dreams? And, you know, or not. And so this was a kind of, you know, definitely the poetic and sort of absurdity of the nature of this project, questioning the American identity. And like I said, that photographic installation that I hope you see is you enter into this room and you are faced with 111 Americans looking at you, but they're Native Americans, they're African Americans, they're Mexicans, then they're white, they're poor, they're rich, they're, you know, functional, dysfunctional, men, women, and that's what America looks like. So this was that was the subversive nature of the project, is to re-emphasize this was what America really looks like. And let's not kid ourselves and go back to the idea of purification, of let's just be all white again, you know. So it was a statement against the white supremacists, and obviously there was that part of it, very intentionally.
Thank you. So there's a lot of question. I would go closer to you. So maybe, yes, in yellow. I would go like this.
Hi. So my question is about, as you know, like there is so many feminist activists in Iran that looking for a platform to talk about these issues. And since I was growing up like in Iran and go to school there and go to school here, I always, whenever I wanted to talk about women's rights, I always look to you as a reference and as a resource, and always like think that you are a voice of feminism in Iran. That's what I felt as an artist, and I don't know if you feel that or if you feel that responsibility, and if that's so, how that affects your artwork.
Certainly, I don't think I deserve that, but I have to tell you something that my biggest inspiration in my life have been Iranian women, and I just have to look at my own family to amazing writers and people like Farnoosh Talaee that I spent so many years working with, Farooq. You know, I have to look at the young Iranian woman today during the Green Movement today. Every woman who's been against the war, a different generation, and have shown their power of confronting the system. And I always say that kind of feminism that comes from places like Iran, it's extremely different than Western idea of feminism, because it's not about like competing with men. It's hard to describe. And I'm really inspired by that. So I'd be extremely honored if people consider me of having a feminist voice. I think that, and the last thing I want to say about this, I think that the difference between us women and men is, at least for me, is that I'm very conscious of my fragility and being a woman physically and in every way, but I think that is a positive aspect of who I am, because I'm not afraid of showing my vulnerability. My work, my characters are all vulnerable. They're all outcasts. They're all running away, and they're very fragile. Simin or Roja or every one of those are a projection of what I see myself. But yet, I'm very strong and I'm very confident and I'm a hard worker and I'm an achiever and I am who I am and I made it myself. Nobody gave it to me. So I believe in the power that I hold as a woman, and I'm very proud of it. But does that make me a feminist? I'm not sure. You know, it's just I'm very inspired by Iranian women.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we have time for like 2 questions, but very quick. So I would go with the gentleman here. If the microphone is up, it's at the end.
First of all, it's an honor to have you here. And my question goes to behind the scene. So what's your procedure for casting the people in your movies? And when is your next audition? I want to be in your movie.
I don't know. If you see my work, you see, honestly, intuitively, the women who are playing the main Roja or Simin, they start to look alike. I've become very obsessed with skinny, small women with big eyes. I mean, the women who play me, in a way, they're starting to look alike. So I have my muses. And honestly, I don't know how this happens. They all wear black, and they have resemblances to the young me. So I don't know. You know, with Women Without Men was really the first time that I worked with professional actors. You know, I don't work with professional actors, and actually a couple of them were not professional actors. And I think with Sheila Vand, who played in this video of Land of Dreams and in the movie, she was the woman who played the girl who walks home alone at night. It's a fantastic film by a young Iranian woman. I was just so blown away by her. But the truth is that Sheila plays herself. She's a very strange woman, super skinny, and she's not beautiful on your face, but she's just strange. And I liked her personality. And I think what she brings to the screen is like what I try to do with my work, is I bring a lot of me to the work. And then my audience feels it. I'm not pretending. The emotions, the sadness, the melancholy, all of those, it comes from me. I'm not making it up, you know. And I think with Sheila and with Roja, who is the other video maybe you haven't seen, she's not an actress. She's a friend. She's a journalist. But I think she brought to the picture herself. And I think that's what I really like, is to find people who really bring a lot of themselves into the film. So if you can audition like that, where you can bring a lot of yourself.
I'm gonna wear black.
Yeah, so black or white. I know I never answered you about that.
So last question.
By the way, that's how I
here.
met my husband, Shoja. He played in my first video. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
And he was wearing white shirt. And he was singing Sharam Nazari's song, you know, Yadgar Dost. And I fell in love with him as he was singing it. But we're together 24 years later. So.
Beautiful love story.
Yeah, it
Thank
is a
you for
love
sharing.
Thank you both, and thank you, MOCA, for organizing this. I can't wait to see the exhibition.
Where are you?
And,
Oh, there you are.
hi. And also your film at Hot Dogs. I have, first of all, I want to know about your earrings, because I know I'm not the only person in the audience who's wondering about these fantastic earrings. But also, if you could tell us about which artists inspire you, and who are you looking at today?
Which one do I start? The earrings? Let's talk about style. Listen, I don't know. I feel like as women, we are individuals. You know, I never like brands. I like to be myself. And like people say, what is this like silly makeup? I swear to God, I don't know where it came from. But when I went to Egypt and I went to, you know, those temples and I saw the Nefertiti's with this incredible, I said, oh my God, in my past life, I must have been an Egyptian. But there's something about things that are kind of unique, you know, that you can find. And I always find like Frida Kahlo or Louise Nevelson, are artists who didn't shy away from being an artwork themselves. I mean, regardless of age, I think we have a sense of style that it becomes, like my calligraphy is like my eyes. You know, I find that it gives me the confidence, you know, that that I need, you know, and everything changing all the time around me. And the one thing that gives me comfort is the way I look. And I look pretty bad often, but it doesn't matter. It's just, it gives me a shield. Anyway, past the earrings. This is the cheapest earrings. But I just like things that are not fancy. They're just like, you know. What was the other question?
The artists that are inspiring you now.
I really like work of art that moves me. I think of art as like a religious experience. I like things that would just sort of knocks me in my guts, you know. And I had this experience, and I tell you, I'm not into painting so much, but I don't know if you know the South African artist Marlene Dumas. And I walked into her exhibition. She's from South Africa, lives in Amsterdam. And I walked into her exhibition at MoMA, I think it was in New York. It was so powerful. It's just pure, raw emotions. it's just like, I can't describe it. There was nothing fancy about it. It's just like so primitive, and it just went right to the heart. So it's whether it's a piece of music or a poem or a movie, or that steers me emotionally, that's all it matters. Because I feel like in life we spend so much time just being a skeleton, being like functional and being in charge, in control. It is nothing, absolutely nothing more powerful when you see a work of art or something that moves you. Say, yes, that's what I live for, And I think that I can name thousands of artists and filmmakers, but anybody who makes emotional work, it's really, I'm so grateful to them. A lot of great Iranian poets move me. Kiarostami moves me deeply, profoundly.
So I
Great
think
way
that's
of ending the.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. You've been such a great audience.
Thank you
And
so
thanks
much.
to you for being
Thanks,
so
Shirin,
generous. Here
for
is
having this talk.
an
with me.
incredible legend,
Thank you,
legendary
MOCA.
filmmaker, and being a moderator. And
Thank you, November, Kathleen.
And thank
Farnoosh,
you,
I don't know where
November.
she
Thank
is,
you,
but
Farnoosh.
thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Rodin, who is here from my studio, who, oh my God, you're going to now show them the little short film as well. Rodin is one of the people who came from me and has edited the video. He's been with me in New Mexico, in Morocco, and truly an extended member of our family in New York. And thank you, MOCA. Thank you, November. Thank you, Farnoosh. And you for
Thank
your
you, Shirin.
generosity. And it's great to be back to Toronto and have a show after 20 years in Canada. Thanks.
Thank you.